Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Christine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Christine Madera, and we are back today with Joshua Bloom. Joshua is the #1 best-selling author of The Ultimate Answer is Inside, and an internationally acclaimed authority on quantum transformation. Joshua developed a modality called quantum energy transformation, which is an innovative fusion of science and spirituality that serves as a roadmap to release hard-to-treat ailments like fibromyalgia, pain, anxiety, and depression, not just by relieving symptoms, but by creating permanent positive change and personal transformation. This same modality also helps empaths, intuitives, energy workers, and others to access the quantum field and its landscape of possibility to align them to their spiritual purpose and to fully embody their life force. Welcome back, Joshua. I'm really excited about talking with you today.
Thank you for having me. I am too excited to see where we go with this.
Today, we're talking about vibration and a few things around vibration, but really about how to expand your vibration, raise your vibration, and keep it there. And that's what Joshua is really good at. So can you actually just start out by telling us a little bit about what vibration is, the scale that you use, and then we can move on from there and explore it further.
Yes. So vibration is very interesting. It's the energy in which we vibrate at, or the frequency in which we vibrate at. And when we are at a low frequency, we tend to get stuck in our life really easily. And we respond differently, and we react differently to those things. You know, a lot of times we look at the difference between reacting and responding. And most of the time we're reacting, and usually it's in fight or flight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And those reactions are really low vibrations, even though they feel very exciting, right?
Absolutely. So judging how you feel is very difficult to determine your vibration, because we get used to the way we feel, and we feel like that's what our normal is. So when I work with clients, we create a new normal, because most people's vibration is much lower than they think it is, because they're vibrating at an energy that they're used to. In other words, their energy, vibration, and frequency is a habit.
Mm-hmm.
It is a memorized way of living their life, and unfortunately, we don't recognize it because it's such a normal thing for us to feel the way we do that we get stuck in that frequency, and we don't raise it. Although many people may do different things to raise their energy frequency. They might engage yoga or go swimming or do some kind of exercise, or maybe they're using tuning forks or toning, or taking a shower even raises your energy frequency. But all the ways I've mentioned to raise your energy frequency aren't permanent. In other words, if you do yoga, that's great, and you'll feel good after yoga, but you know how it is. You get to the peak, it's really good, and then it starts to go down and down and down and down and down until you're back to whatever your normal frequency is. And so you don't feel good for very long. And so we keep having to repeat over and over and over again that exercise or that yoga or whatever it is that we're using a million times, and still we're not maintaining that frequency. We need to continue to use that tool to change our frequency, where it would be more efficient when we change our frequency by changing it permanently. so that we can be living at a higher frequency all the time. And that becomes a new normal versus being stuck at our old frequency. But again, if you can't feel whether you're at the high frequency or low frequency because you're used to the frequency that you're at, it's very difficult to judge. It's like, oh, I think I feel good today, but if you were to compare it to a raised frequency, so for example, if you're at a frequency of 200 and you then changed your frequency to 800, you would definitely feel the difference. But if 200 is your normal, then you may not realize whether you're at 200 or 800 unless you raised it.
So, what would be the benefit of raising your frequency, and how would it feel different from 200 to 800?
There are lots of benefits for raising your energy frequency, which I love, because raising your energy frequency gives you a different level of life. When you are at a higher frequency, at least above 500, 500 is the level of love. If you're at least at that level, you are in an amazing place where you feel good. It's no effort at that level to feel good. You still get triggered. You might have something that pushes your buttons. Somebody might push your buttons. Some conversation might push your buttons, and that might bring down your frequency in the moment, but you still respond or react differently from that perspective. Actually, you're more likely to respond versus react if you're at 500 and above, because then you can allow yourself to be you authentically at that level, and your buttons get pushed, but they're not pushed at a deep level that causes you to drastically lower your frequency, which is really nice. So the higher your frequency, the more happy you are, and the easier it is to live your life. The lower your frequency, the more the trigger matters. So when you get triggered and someone pushes your buttons, it really, really is difficult for you when you're at a low frequency, especially for empaths. Now, empaths have another issue. Much of an empath's energy is not their own, that they're feeling. They're feeling their energy from other people, from the spirit world, from all sorts of places that they're picking up information from. And much of that information is instantly lowering their energy frequency because of what they're connected to. And so when they're getting their buttons pushed without a happening, without a situation to happen, empaths many times get triggered just simply by being them. Unfortunately, many empaths get overwhelmed with that dramatically. And so they're living at 200 frequency when they should be living at 500 and above, maybe even 1,000, and they can't because they can't get away from it. And that's one of the things I specialize when I work with empaths, because empaths do not function well at low energy frequencies. And if they don't get out of that situation, then they're always being triggered and it's always pulling them down, and it is a struggle every single day. And I know because I was there personally myself when I was in my experience with anxiety. I had very deep anxiety, as you know, and when I say very deep anxiety, there's no playing here. It was like terrible. And it was difficult because there were many days I wasn't functional, such as, I couldn't work or anything. I could just do whatever I could do to get through the day. And that was a really trying time in my life. And I would get a trigger. It would set me off into an anxiety attack. And that anxiety attack could happen for, a few minutes, but most of the time it was for a few hours. And it was very difficult for me to get back in my body and get back on track. Many times I would feel like I was freaking out and going crazy because I'm responding to something, and many times I didn't know what I was responding to because nothing was happening. In my world, it seemed to be fine, but for me, I was freaking out. All of a sudden, I'm in an anxiety attack and don't know why, and now I'm scared of the fear. And now I have a habit of being scared of the fear because of that, right? So I don't have that issue anymore today, but it was definitely a 10-year battle for me, living in that energy where I was being attacked by the fear and the anxiety daily. And some days I'd be in anxiety all day. And it was rough.
Can you explain what an empath is? Because it's about 15 to 20% of the population. And not all empaths know that they're empaths. And being able to recognize yourself would be like life-changing. And a lot of people who are not empaths, like they have no understanding of what life is like for an empath. And this might help give them some more compassion for people who are in this state of being unable to function normally in in what we think of as normal. Because I know my friends who are not empaths, they're like, I just don't get it. Like, this is just, I don't understand you people. And so can you please tell us what empaths are so that people can recognize them, or at least recognize their friends?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that, because you're right. A lot of people don't recognize that they're an empath, and at the same time, many people don't know what that even means if they're not empathic. So an empath, basically, they have abilities that are caused by their sensitivity. So they're very sensitive because they're able to pick up information that most people are not able to pick up. So they can pick up information from the spirit world. They can pick up information from people or their environment or from a situation. Many times they get intuitions kind of spontaneously, where they just start to know things that come into their energy system. And so the biggest place it comes from is the spirit world, because the spirit world is what we call the other side. When people pass, that's the spirit world. And there's a lot of information empaths get. So a lot of empaths happen to be mediums, because a medium is a type of empath who actually is directly connected with the spirit world and can get all sorts of information. And they get messages for people who have passed and all that kind of stuff, which is very interesting. Now, those empaths have developed their ability to connect with that information and be able to separate it, hopefully. And so some maybe not, but for the most part, if they're able to do that at will, then they have some control. But most empaths, especially if they don't even know that they're one, don't have any control. So all of a sudden they're getting information, they get fear, they don't know why. They get this information, emotional and a knowing comes in, and it becomes scary, because if you don't know that you're getting this information or why you're getting it, and you just have this gut feeling that something is wrong, and it may not even be wrong with that person. It might be wrong with somebody else that they know, but they're not tuned into exactly why all the time until they start honing what I call their superpowers. So as you start honing your powers, you can start understanding where you're getting the information from, more specifics on what you're actually getting, and be able to separate yourself when you don't want to have this input. I remember I was watching a TV show, and I don't remember which one, but there was a lady who was an empath or medium, and she would say, when I put on the hat, that means I turn it off. That means everybody leave me alone, spirits and spirit world. Yeah, she put on a hat. She literally put a physical hat on her head. And then when she took it off, she said, now it's okay. That, I'm okay to talk with spirits, and that was her communication with the spirit world. We have easier ways to do it now, because I can't imagine if you're sleeping that you'd want to wear a hat. But unless she does, I don't know. But, turning off the spirit world or turning off the ability is like a switch, and it's possible to turn it off and on as you choose. But most empaths don't know where that switch is. They don't know how to turn it off, and so it's on 24/7. I remember the first time I turned off the spirit world, and I turned off the spirit world, and it was a shock to me how quiet it was. I said, I've never experienced quiet like this. It's always noisy. And so now I can turn off the spirit world and turn off whatever I choose to turn off at my own will and choosing. So I don't get overwhelmed anymore by overload of so many different types of information coming from everywhere and making me nuts, which it used to do. But now I have that control. And because of that, it's life altering. I mean, it's absolutely a very different way of living. I don't have to be overwhelmed by large amounts of information. Now, remember, stress is one of the things that makes our life very difficult. And when you get really stressed, we call that anxiety. So the difference between stress and anxiety is intensity, how much intensity it is. So imagine an empath who brings in energy today that they don't even know what it is yet, but they're feeling one way or another, usually not great, and or spirits who have negative energy that are around them because they know they're an empath, and the empath's not really aware of this yet as to these spirits and what they're doing there, and it's making them feel uncomfortable, and now they're stressed about that. That's just one day. Now imagine the next day and the day after that, and then this goes on for weeks and then months and then years, that this stress never goes away.
Right. Yeah.
It's just holding on to them, and at some point their energy frequency goes down so low that they lose their function, their ability to function in the way that they were before, because they were resilient, when they were a kid. And then as you get older and that hasn't changed, it becomes more difficult and more difficult because you're not talking about stress from one incident. You're talking about stress from thousands of incidences.
So as an empath, and then as people who are not empathic, but particularly empaths, as they raise their vibration, like if you were an empath and you had a vibration of 500 or 600 or something, are you then really tapping into information fields that are at that same level? Like if you're low in a low vibration as an empath, are those lower vibrational energies the ones that are attracted to you and that you begin to pick up? Like, does the information change based on your vibration as an empath?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that that people were telling us, especially with the law of attraction and things like this, they were telling us that whatever you think is going to happen to you. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
It's not true. so you can relax.
There's a lot of things missing out of that law of attraction. Yes.
But but this is what everybody was learning, that this idea was, if you have a negative thought, then that negative thought is going to happen to you. So if you think you're going to die, then then that's going to happen to you. You're going to die. And people were getting scared. I know I've had clients that were freaking out because they were like, well, I can't turn off my negative thoughts, and now I think I'm going to die, or I think someone's going to happen to my mother, or whatever it is. And they thought it, and they're like, oh my God, I keep thinking it, and I can't stop thinking it. It's like, don't think of the pink elephant in the room, right? How can you not think of it? So it's making them crazy. And I realized that's obviously not true, that whatever you think is not going to happen to you. But whatever you think will lower your frequency if it's a low frequency thought. So if you lower your frequency, and because of the thoughts that you're having, you do attract things more in that lower frequency. And yet there are a couple things going on here. There's also intent. So when we have a low frequency, some people might be in depression or have anxiety or a combination of the two. And when they're dealing with all that, there's also an intention that they have that also has a frequency. And even though they can't consciously drop that intention because all they're experiencing is the negative, that intention is actually playing a part in their experience as well. Their intention is at a much higher frequency of possibility.
Right.
And even though they can't see those possibilities or experience them in the moment, it's holding the frequency a little higher at that level so that they're not attracting everything that they think. So in other words, if you think that you're going to die and you keep thinking it, you can think it all day long. You're not going to die because of the thought.
Right.
And yes, although you're at a low frequency and you attract lower frequency energies, and like attracts like, we never really are at one frequency for a long period of time. Our frequency fluctuates. It doesn't normally stay at exactly that number, and it never moves all day. Someone gives you a gift, and you're like, oh my, that's wonderful, thank you so much, and your frequency goes up. And then something happens on the news, and you're like, oh my God, and your frequency goes down. And so it goes back and forth, up and down, between some numbers there. For many people, it might be between 200 and 300 or 200 and 500. For other people, it might be 500 and 1,000. It just depends on, their energy frequency and their habit of where they live and the triggers that they experience every day. So the answer to your question is yes, you do attract the energy frequency that you're at, but at the same time, we are guided, and we have angels that protect us, and we have this intention for why we're here on the planet. All of this is there for us. Life is not happening to us, it's happening for us. So yes, there may be times where life is hard, and believe you me, I've been there. Because of that, life is happening for me differently at higher frequencies. And yet we learn at higher frequencies. Here's an interesting thought. I want to add this because this is very powerful.
Okay.
We tend to think that good and bad are opposites of the same coin. We only want the good and we never want the bad. We try to eliminate getting the bad things and try to get more of the good things. But good and bad are friends. So good and bad being friends, they actually work together to have life go for you in ways that you wouldn't even figure out analytically. So the thing about it is that when we're at our deepest lows, we have more motivation there to make a change because we kind of get, used to the idea of when things are good, we don't have any energy to want to change it. It's good. I don't want to change it. It's not really good.
Why would we want to change anything?
Exactly. So the bad plays a part and brings you something negative as a helper to remind you, hey, listen, this is energy that's going to help you make a new decision to take yourself to the next level because you weren't. Many years ago, I was working in a hypnosis center, and the universe had wanted me to go ahead and open up my own center. And I wasn't doing it because I was very happy making the money I was making at the center that I was working at. And I was very comfortable doing what I was doing. And the universe had other plans for me. There is another plan, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, but there was another plan. And so the universe had me get into an argument with the woman that I was working for. And it blew up so much that I left. I said, okay, I don't have to do this. I'm out. But that was the only argument that we ever had. We never argued before that. We always got along. Everything was good. We had one argument and I left.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's how I know that it wasn't, it's not, we had a great relationship. There was no issue with my relationship with her. I just had this argument with her, and from that I opened up my own center. And had that argument never happened, if that never happened, I never would have opened up my center, or maybe it would have been totally different. But the universe said, we have a plan for you. You need to go and have your center. And so I did.
Can I insert a couple of things right here?
Please go ahead.
I want to not let these things slip away. So One of the things that you said was that there's this deeper intention that we have that is often a higher vibration than what we're experiencing in our daily life, that I'm just going to say or interpret right now is kind of like your higher self's intention
Yes.
for the life that you're leading, and that intention is pulling you through your life, or pushing you or leading you, or however you want to say that. But and for all these people who really believe in the law of attraction, I would ask them, how many things have come to you that you weren't actually thinking about, that was actually something that came to you that met a need, or brought you into something that you didn't even know that you wanted, but it brought you there. And it's that deeper, higher intention for your life that overrides really your desires for your life in many ways. And I had this conversation with a guest one time about our personal free will versus our soul's free will, and like which one trumps which one, right? It's always the larger self's free will that pulls us forward. And like you were saying, you had the intuition. It would be interesting to start your own thing. I think that's what you were saying. You were getting this idea of doing this, but you were like, I like this other thing. I'm having a good time. But it was that larger intention that said, well, if you're not going to cooperate, we're just going to nudge you with this thing to help catalyze the decision that we're inviting you into, through having this argument with this woman. But had you listened to the intuition and said, wow, I think I'm going to make that change, you wouldn't have needed that negative experience, quote unquote, to jumpstart that transformation. So I just wanted to not let those things go by, because life is so fun and interesting and interactive when you begin to interact and are really mindful with that higher intention for yourself that you can be open to and have a intuition about, or an experience of, or an inkling of. And that it's always good, I think, to just, like I've learned in my life, like, just say yes. So, otherwise there's a lot of drama.
Yes. I love so much what you were saying, because what ended up happening for me, not to me,
Yeah,
but
for
for
you,
me,
yes.
what happened for me was nothing more than amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect what was going to happen next, actually. And what happened was the universe put me back into what we call alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So now here's the fun part. When
Okay.
you're in alignment with your identity and you're at
Mm-hmm.
a high frequency, then things just fall in your lap.
And I just want you to say, you mean identity from that quantum level, not identity from, like, I know my top 10 values level.
Right. From the
Okay.
quantum level.
I just want to clarify that.
Absolutely. And when I was put into alignment by that argument. That argument
Mm-hmm.
happened, and all of a sudden I was in alignment with the universe. I was in alignment
Mm-hmm.
with my identity, the quantum identity, and I was
Mm-hmm.
in alignment with my unconscious mission,
Mm-hmm.
because I never knew that I had this mission, because obviously I was meant to do this work with people and to help people so deeply on a daily basis. But I didn't know I was meant to do that. It sort of found me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I wasn't a little kid saying, I want to be a fireman. No, I want to be, this amazing person who can help people transform their lives. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
who knew that was even something you could do when you were a kid, I didn't
Yeah.
know you could do that. That didn't sound like something that you would be able to do. A fireman, that made sense,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
that kind of thing, or, work in an office, but to go ahead and help people transform their lives, that wasn't a
Wow.
thing.
Yeah.
So it found me, and when it did, it was amazing. So so I got into this alignment that everything just started to happen. The next
Mm-hmm.
thing that I did was I went home, because I left the company there, and I went home. I packed my car with all my stuff, and I went
Mm-hmm.
home. And while I was home, I had called one of my clients, because I had to let her know that I wasn't going to be there for our appointment,
Yeah.
because I had left.
Mm-hmm.
And when I called her, I had said, I'm not going to be there. I had left the company, so you'll have to deal with them for the rest of the services that you had paid for.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, oh, so when are you going to have your own place? And I said, oh, well, I've been looking for a place, and I haven't been able to find one, although I had just started looking. She said, I'll call you back in 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Now, I just told her I was looking for a place, and she'll call me back in 30 minutes. I'm like, why are you going to call me back in 30 minutes? I'm just telling you, I don't know what is she saying? So she called me back in 30 minutes, and she said, I want to meet you at this address. And she gave me the address to meet her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. So I go to the address, and, everything else that I had looked at was very, very expensive. I couldn't afford any of the office spaces that were in that area. It was a very expensive area. But this particular building wasn't expensive, and I could actually afford it. And there was three offices that they were offering. I think it was like $900 a month.
Wow.
For 3 office spaces. So one was really, really big, and that became my training room. One was kind of medium, and that became the waiting room. And the other office was smaller, and that became my personal office. And so I didn't have to do anything. I told the lady that I needed an office. She called me in a half an hour with an office. I mean, it's like, what?
But that's life when you are in alignment with your higher intention, and not like your conscious mind intention, but when you surrender to that larger quantum identity intention. If I can't even define it, but that is what life is like at that. And I think that's one of the things, this is a little divergence, with the law of attraction. I think one of the things, the disservices that it does, is it puts so much on what your conscious intention and your conscious focus and your conscious doing and actions are. And it does less on really opening up and surrendering to the whole of you and allowing that life to live itself through you. And like you just did and said, to really unfold it for you, as opposed to trying to make it happen yourself.
So true. Dr. Bruce Lipton told me personally, he says, Joshua, the law of attraction can't work the way they say it works. I'm like, what? He says, no, they can't. He says, because attraction happens unconsciously. And 95% of the time you're unconscious and you're not aware of what's happening. So if you're not attracting unconsciously, you're not attracting. And whatever you do consciously is only 5% of the time. And that's not enough to actually attract anything.
No, and that's why it's so important to have, that's why it's so important to have a high vibration, because that vibration is part of your unconscious field attracting things to you, bringing it back to vibration.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's not all that happened, though. So then I decided that I was going to go. That I was going to go to this weight loss center because they had invited me to go before I left that company. I was introduced to them through the company, but they had said, I said, can I still come even though I'm not with the company? They said, sure, come. We don't care. It's all good. So I said, okay. So I showed up, and I don't know, I had this intuition to ask the lady that ran the center if she had any furniture, because of course I had an office, but all we had to sit on was the floor. I was looking all day that day on how much furniture cost, and to rent it or to buy it, I didn't have any of that kind of money. I mean, just one chair was ridiculous. And I couldn't afford it. So I said, I know this sounds silly, but do you have any furniture that you don't need? Because I'm trying to fill my office. And she looked at me and she says, come by on Saturday and bring a like, a U-Haul kind of car, van, whatever, and you can pick up what I have. She said, bring your friends. You're going to need friends. And I'm like, well, how much stuff do you got? She said, just come. I said, okay. So I show up at her very nice house, and she opens the garage, and she's got 2 desks with chairs. She's got waiting room chairs. She's got all sorts of furniture there for me. I had my office desk there. We had a desk for the waiting room. We had waiting room chairs. The only thing I didn't have was from her was was some furniture for my office. I needed like a little love seat in my office, and I needed a couch and a couch for the bigger room so that people could sit on the couch. And so this lady that I was working that I told about the office, she said, "Well, can I come work for you?" And I said, "That would be lovely, except for I have no money. So you can't come work for me because I can't pay you." And she said, "Well, that's okay. I'm sitting at home alone anyway, and I would rather do something that was meaningful." And I said, "Well, I'll only agree to it is if when I can afford to pay you that I can start paying you at that time. But so yes, you could work for free, but not forever." And she agreed to that. And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Well, Joshua, I need to clean my basement out. And I got this love seat and this couch that are too big for my basement. And I want to sell them to you." And so for a couple $100, she gave those to me. I brought the U-Haul again, went to her house. Everything just started to happen for me. Without any effort. I mean, who goes to someone and asks them, "Do you have any furniture?" I mean, who would think that they would even have it? I was even feeling stupid asking the question. But my intuition said, ask her. I'm like, okay, I'll ask her. Like, who am I talking to? But it was just like that. It was like, ask her if she has furniture. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Ask her if she has furniture. I'm like having this conversation in my head saying, what? And it just all fell in my lap with no effort whatsoever. It just happened the way it happened. And life happens that way when you're at a higher frequency and you're in alignment with what you're doing.
And those are the two really key things. So there's one thing I wanted to bring up, and then I want to ask if you've got something that you can do to help guide us in increasing our frequency in a way that lasts more than just the random rises and falls. But the question is, I hear a lot of people saying, "Well, I'm just working on raising my vibration. I just want to raise my vibration." And they'll have a pretty high vibration. And I have had clients like this, but in a particular area of their life, like they're at a chronically either low vibration or a vibration that's misaligned with joy and love and freedom and flow, whether it's oftentimes around money or a sort of a aspect of a relationship or, what are the big key things in our life that tends to be like out of sync with the whole high vibration thing. So how does that work when you're generally in a high vibration, but you've got one or two areas of your life that are just not there? How do you work with that to increase those vibrations?
Absolutely. And that's a big thing. Your overall vibration is very different than a vibration that of the things that you think about, the things that have happened in your life. We've all had traumas. I was molested when I was 13 years old, and I used to have a low vibration about that. So when I thought about it, it would just trigger me just the thought of it. And now it's no big deal. I could talk about it. No issue to me at all. It's just, part of who it made me become today. And we all have struggles and happenings that are not pleasant and or even traumatic and can shift. So we can raise our frequency. Now, money is a big one. You mentioned money, and money is one of those things that people have a very low frequency about. And a lot of times that frequency comes from modeling of the parent. So the parent is talking about their money, and the child is picking up on all of this idea of what money means to them. I have a friend of the family who they happen to be Hispanic, and I met them a long time ago in a different center in New York City that I was working at, and we became friends. And I became friends with her son and her daughter, and her son and I had a really great relationship through the years. I met him when he was, I think, 6. And now he's finished college and he's in graduate school. So before all that happened, I remember him specifically saying to me, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm not going to have money. And I thought that was very interesting that he had said that. And I thought, wow, you've decided that for yourself. I said, that's not something good to decide. How about you decide that you have money because you choose to? I took him to a fancy restaurant, and I said, look at the people in this fancy restaurant. I said, all these people, and it's a very fancy restaurant, like, hundreds of dollars just to eat there.
Wow.
and I'm showing him all the people there. I said, what do you see? He says, I see people, and they're dressed nicely, and they have money, obviously, they can afford to eat there. I said, yeah, this is for you. This is where you're headed, this way. And so I started to offer him new possibilities about money. And, there were obviously people in that restaurant that were also Spanish or Puerto Rican. And so he was starting to see, oh, this is different. Now, the interesting thing is that he's an engineer now. And so he's going to make lots and lots of money.
Yeah, good for him.
He's going to be quite wealthy very soon in his career. Because of his talent. He graduated at the highest honors in his school. He was actually valedictorian. So he went from that place of, I can't be anything, I won't have money, to through, not just through me, but obviously his mom and everybody else who helped him through it too. But we all looked at this and said, wait a second, we're not going to accept this idea about your having a low frequency about money, because you can have everything that you choose. And so now he's successful and his frequency changed. So yes, you can change your frequency about money or anything else. The thing is that we hold the frequency about different things such as money in our energy field. And when we do, and it's a low frequency, we can't attract it. So a lot of people might be working on their energy frequency, but they're not changing their frequency about money.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to work on what we call money blocks. And those money blocks are aspects of the low frequency energies about specific money things that we think about. The thing is you don't need to actually work on one aspect at a time. You can work on the total aspect of it all at once, actually. And that gets exciting because in quantum energy transformation, you don't have to say, okay, what's my money block here? What's my money block there? What's my money block here? And then you got to work on 10 money blocks. And then, finally be able to attract money. You could just actually shift what money means to you, and your body knows all the aspects and can release them all at once.
So, and you've done this with us before, and it's very powerful about how to actually do that. So could you lead us in an exercise either about vibration in general, or you've been talking about money. So maybe we can do a specific one on, raising money vibration, whichever one feels like it's more applicable for you.
Well, I'd like to take you through a very quick exercise that is quite powerful using what I call candle breaths. Okay. And a candle breath, I discovered it many years ago. It's a variation of the fire breath. Now, fire breath is when you breathe in and you go, ah, like that. That's a fire breath. Yeah. Okay. Some people call them the ha breath, but basically it's just breathing out. Now, a candle breath is a little bit different. It's like when you have your birthday and you see the birthday candles right in front of you on top of the cake, and you want to blow the candles out. You don't go ha, because it's not going to blow out the candles if you do that. So you've got to go, really hard, right? And it blows all the candles out. So that's why I called it a candle breath. You breathe in through your nose, and then you breathe out really hard out through your mouth and long, so that you can blow out all the candles on the cake. A candle breath is very powerful because it moves what we call fire energy. It moves other energies as well, not just fire energies, but it's really good at moving fire energy. And most of the things that we deal with that are difficult have fire in them, like anger or anxiety. But it also moves other energies. It's not just fire energy. It's just really good at moving fire energy. And so the candle breath, what I find is very powerful, especially when you focus on something that you want to release on. So, for example, instead of having to work on all of the aspects of money, your body knows what money is in your frequency. If you say money, You'll know if your heart sinks in, or if your stomach has that little dip in it, or you feel a tingle or something. When you say money, if your energy frequency went up or if your energy frequency went down.
Yeah.
And for most of us, unfortunately, it goes down because our money is something that we've been taught. All sorts of things about money is evil. Money, I can't get it, or like my friend who said because he's Puerto Rican he can't get it, which is ridiculous. But that's but we associate these things, and we associate things that may or may not even make any sense, and it really doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is just simply release on money and let the body figure it out for us. So we don't have to do the work other than the candle breaths and our attention. So the first thing we're going to do is standing is easiest to do this exercise.
All right.
So while you're standing, you're going to put your attention at the base of your spine. And you're just going to breathe in 3 times just to get really in your body. And you're going to breathe as if you're breathing the breath into your feet. So you're going to breathe in through the nose, right into the feet. And just let it out. And then do that 2 more times. Good. And that should just bring you right into your body real nice and easy. And then every time that we do a candle breath, we're going to say, I can have lots of money. Now, what we know about a statement like that is if, we call these affirmations, right? When we get triggered actually by them, they don't actually shift our belief. They don't do that. We think they do, but they don't. Affirmations don't shift your beliefs. If it's in alignment with your belief, then it will work. But most of the time it's not in alignment. That's why you're saying it. But when you say an affirmation, normally it triggers you. It actually doesn't make you feel better. So we're going to use that trigger as a means of moving the energy. So to do that, we're going to say the trigger, I can have lots of money, and when you say it, you probably feel a feeling. If you're listening to this, you're feeling this in your body, and you can feel it if something feels a little off, and probably it will. And so you say, I can have lots of money, like that.
Okay.
Try it once.
I can have lots of money.
Good. Now we're going to do it 19 times. Are you ready?
All right. I'm going to mute myself so they're not hearing both of us. So you can do it, and I'm going to do it with you, but I'm going to do it on mute. Okay. Go ahead.
Good idea. Here we go. I can have lots of money. I could 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 have lots of money. And on the last one, just let it blow out all the way and breathe right back in. And just keep your attention under your feet and let it balance, because this is where the work happens. It doesn't happen while you're doing the breaths. It happens now. So just be in your body, attention at the base of your spine or under your feet, and just relax into your body. And you'll start to feel that not only does your frequency go up, but a lot of things start to change and move inside of you. It takes about a minute. Woo! Okay. How do you feel?
I feel energized, and I feel like I can have lots of money. So that's great.
So now the affirmation that triggered us before, let's say it. I can have lots of money. And it's like, yeah, it's like I believe that, right? That's how powerful it is to use the breath with your attention and knocking this out in 19 breaths, and it's just done.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I also feel taller. I feel cooler. It got cold in my room. Lots of things changed for me.
Well, that's true too. No, that really did. And I've done your exercises at different times, and I always feel taller, and I feel lighter, and I feel more energized. So all the things that you've done with us, and this is our third conversation, so there's 2 other ones to listen to if you haven't gotten to those yet, have really helped in different ways to shift my vibration and shift my whole body. It's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I love it because it's simple, it works, and it realigns you. Remember we were talking about alignment. So now money is in alignment with you in all ways, and it happened all at once. You didn't have to go through all the little aspects. You didn't have to figure anything out. You let the body just process it. And here's the great news. You can always do it again. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, not that you need to do it again, but you could always do it again if you say, well, I'd like to be more in alignment with money. Okay, well, that exercise works very, very quickly to put you right in alignment with money. And it's life-changing, because when you're in alignment for having money and your energy frequency is high about having money, then everything is happening even in a better way for you than before, because things will be easy, especially when you want to bring in money.
And the more we can be in alignment and with that higher intention, the faster that higher intention manifests. And that higher intention always provides for you. So it's not an intention of lack, it's an intention of support and supporting you in what you need. It may not be the intention of, being a multimillionaire, but it's always the intention of being sure that your well-being is supported.
Absolutely.
All right, Joshua, it has been wonderful talking with you. And you can find Joshua's links and information on conversationsfromtheedge.net, including a link to his I Am Limitless program. And if you have enjoyed this very simple but profound exercise that we just did, you're going to love that program, because it's all about using these simple ways to shift your energy at a quantum level to absolutely transform every aspect of your life. So I invite you to go really check that out. It's really reasonable and it's totally profound. So you can find everything at conversationsfromtheedge.net. Thank you, Joshua, so much for sharing your expertise and your energy and your joyfulness with us. It's been really great talking with you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
This is your host, Christine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.